CORA Town Hall. We've got a number of presenters for discussions regarding the Canadian Outrigger Hall of Fame inductees this year. So I'll just go through a couple of administrative items first. Will everybody on the call please mute themselves unless they're speaking? And this call is being recorded so that if you remain on the call, you automatically consent to your image and your name being posted publicly on the internet on the CORA website. In addition, any contributions that you make, you won't receive any compensation. I'm getting an echo of exactly what I'm saying from Heather's. Heather, can you mute yourself? Okay, so today we've got moderating the session, the CORA Town Hall Committee comprising Eric Ages from Fairway Gorge, Val Simmons from Haunani in Montreal, and Leanne Stanley from Kelowna. And we've got a special presenter today to act as moderator is Graham Galvez, is a CORA board member, and he was instrumental in getting together all the information and doing all the research regarding the candidates and inductees for the Hall of Fame. So we're very much appreciative to his efforts. And he was also instrumental in tracking down all the presenters for today's presentation town hall. So I'll just hand it off to Graham right now.
Thank you, Ron. And as per our pre-meeting, Zoom is going to drop me a dozen times today, and our town hall committee is just going to pick up the ball and run with it until I get back online. So excuse my absences, but I'll be back as soon as I can. Wendy?
What have I done now?
Do we have an echo? All good? Yeah, so this is partly going to be a presentation, recognition for our 2021 inductees, and it's partly going to be a history lesson. And so first, a disclaimer. We've just had a handful of CORA volunteers, doing their best to go out and recover 20 to 30 years of history based on some online research and some interviews with folks. And I do thank everybody who took the time to do a virtual interview with me or an in-person interview with me so we could capture as much information and go off and chase things down. We know there's inaccuracies, and we do hope that if you take the time to read your bio, you come back and say, hey, let's fix this, because we do want to strive for accuracy. Our bios are living documents, and they will continue to be updated as we learn more things. The next thing is the 2-page bios on the CORA Hall of Fame do not do justice. They do not do service to the contributions made by these Hall of Fame inductees. And the fact that we've managed to slice it down to a half a slide of their highlights is once again just the tip of the iceberg. So we have no idea what our guest speakers are going to talk about or share during this session, but we look forward to anything they do care to share. We have 7 slides right up front here, and we're just going to blaze through them because we really want to get into the highlights and get some perspectives from the inductees and the guest speakers. So this is our agenda. You just saw that. So thank you. Yeah, so we're going to blaze through 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we'll get to 5. So our overview is real simple. We know CORA was founded in 1992, and now we actually know who did that. But we still had a bunch of Canadians doing outrigger in the 70s and 80s. CORA clubs were founded in the late 80s, early 90s, and then CORA showed up. And we know that there were a bunch of individuals who just made significant and exemplary contributions. That is what is on the plaque that all of our inductees received. And so what we're doing here is just kind of recognizing that 2021 inaugural year group. So you just have an idea of what they did to lay the foundations for CORA. Thank you, Eric. Beautiful. So this is what happened. We're at the pre-AGM last November, and we just came to the realization that there was just no way with one trophy our Hughtown Memorial Builder Award trophy that we're going to recognize everybody unless it takes decades. So the first half of 2021, we put together a process. We identified a number of individuals who we thought were basically rock stars for CORA. And then at the August 2021 meeting, we announced the inductees, and then we were off to the races. Next, yep. And I don't know if anybody from Comox is here other than Mel Whittall, but Jackie Bell, Annie Bolding, a number of individuals out there agreed to put on an in-person presentation to Rick Newey, Peter Ferrand, Heather Taylor, Don Irvine, David Bolding, Annie Bolding, Mel Whittall, and Cheryl Scribe. I unfortunately wasn't able to make that event. I hear it went well. And we are hoping to do this next year for our next, for our 2022 inductees, is have a presentation on site at the first event after the voting, the balloting for the inductees for 2022. And here we are. We have 10 inductees that we're looking to recognize today. And once again, thank you for the guest speakers. We tried to find at least one person, maybe two, who knew each of these individuals back in the day and see if they would come forward to share some personal insights, to put a little bit more substance to who they are versus what we were able to just put together on a single slide. I do not know if we have anybody from Lotus. Today, if you knew, Barb Alley was her celebration of life, and many of the Lotus individuals were there for that celebration of life for Barb Alley. They may join, they may not. If not, we're just going to wing it when we get down to Gary, Jim Mancell, Bob Disbrow, and Ron. So let's move on, Eric. Yes, our guest speakers. To try and to take 3 or 4 bullet points and highlight, go online, Google them, and you will get some pretty impressive credentials on each one of these individuals. Tony Hall from Nova Scotia, Karen Tomlinson up there in Pemberton, Alwyn Morris from Kanawake, hopefully he's with us, Lynne Smith from Clipper Canoe, Mel Whittall, Open Ocean Outriggers, there in Comox, and slide 2 of that. Club, now with Victoria. Doug Mancell, 2007 CORA president. Ron Kashula can't make it. I think he's doing some fiberglass work today. Andrea Dillon, we know her, Water's Edge, co-founder, Dragon Boat Canada Hall of Fame, 2002 Tahiti Sprints medalist, Kamini Jain. I don't think she needs an introduction, but basically umpteen IVF Sprints medalist. And I don't know if Dan O'Donovan with us, but quite honestly, a lot of this could not happen without Dan. I've known him for probably 20 plus years. And when he sat down and told me for 2 straight hours everything he knew about Jackie and Kamini and the movement from Calgary to Vancouver, it really set forth this whole process of capturing the histories. So if anybody, if I didn't do enough justice to your credentials, please speak up. But let's move forward to the main show here. And I'll just take a few moments to talk about Drew Mitchell. This was early 2020 last year during COVID, and we were tracking down histories on Lotus and Falls Creek and Jericho, and I met with Jan Shavery at Jericho, and she said, "Oh, you got to talk to Drew." And I tracked him down, and we talked several hours, a virtual interview from Penticton to here, and when CORA recognized him as the Hughtown Memorial Builder recipient for 2020. That's when we realized that we needed a Hall of Fame because there were just too many people. So Drew, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing those hours and hours of history from the early 80s and for basically being the driver behind this Hall of Fame. So let's turn it over to Tony Hall and Drew Mitchell to do our first guest speaker and inductee talk. Eric?
Over to you, Drew.
Sorry, I get to go first? I thought Tony was going first.
Oh, my apologies. Yeah.
Tony goes first. Guest speaker first.
Tony, you're muted. How's that?
Better?
We're good? We can hear?
Yep, you're good,
So,
Tony.
with my coaching background at so many different clubs and so many different roles, I often get calls, you know, to speak at inductions or, you know, I always say some athlete, some medalists, they later on in life, they, you know, invented something. Who cares if they went with Bezos or you know, they saved the village by inventing some sort of, you know, thing to supply water. And, you know, we've all heard that all before. And I was thinking another awards thing, but then Graham said, but Tony, you know, we want you to talk. And I said, oh, well, that might be interesting. So I decided I would want to talk for Drew. I had a hard time thinking about this because so much of my experience with Drew was part of a magical time for me personally, and I like to think for canoeing in British Columbia, although it's easy for me to say. And Drew was such a big part of it. And what I just heard the gentleman say about Drew driving something, just again, struck home. When I've been lucky to be successful in different coaching roles, there's always been somebody doing the real work behind and to let me do my thing, good or bad. And my time in British Columbia, although short, I can't separate that and Drew because they're totally linked, and some of the stories are great, and I think they help us understand why we do this crazy thing in canoeing and also sport. And so, of course, I just, you know, we always talk about excellence. You can see Drew there, and people you guys all know, Don Irvin, Hugh, and Colin. I learned everything I would ever need to know about canoeing. Then this section didn't pay off in my time in British Columbia because I was smart in that what we needed when I showed up was me as a screaming Yahoo like I was as an 18-year-old coach. And I told Drew this story the other day, is Hugh Fisher. I met Hugh at the Canada Games and he said, hey, why don't you come to British Columbia and coach? And I like, well, I have a teaching job. I just graduated from Dal Phys Ed. And he said, do you really want to do that? And I said, well, not really, but he said, well, come to British Columbia. So somehow he got me out there, didn't take the teaching jobs. Thanks, Hugh, I'd be retired with a pension now. And the first time we had training, I left, I was living at UBC, and I drove out to Burnaby Lake, and it hit me as I was driving. It was snowing, and it was pitch black dark. And I got out there, and a group of guys, Alan Morris included, and people, I think Greg Barton was there at certain times, did 10 times 1,000 meters or 10K turn and go. And over January, February, and March of that year, I was privy to the best canoe racing I'd ever seen in my life. And there's not a month or any day I'm involved in canoeing that I don't hold that as the standard of canoe and kayak training. And they would work so people would come in, Drew in his canoe. I remember Annie being in her whitewater boat, and you just had to pick your point, get in with the peloton and go. And it was so inclusive, but so hard. And from then, the answer was clear. And the last part of this story is that I was lucky in the last years of Steve Giles, the Olympic medalist and world champion C1. We had a training camp where I was lucky to bring in Tom Hall, next medalist, and Mark Oldershaw, another medalist. And one of the workouts Stevie did, 10 times 1,000 turn and go, just like I watched from Hugh Fisher and Alan Morris and Drew Mitchell. And you know, the only people that could do it, Stevie, Tom Hall, Mark Oldershaw, 3 Olympic medalists. The other thing I learned in my time here is that excellence travels in small circles. I bumped into Hugh Fisher. I watched these guys. Drew was in that group. Drew traveled with me. Drew coached Warren Edwards. Warren went to Seattle with what he had taken from Drew, myself. And from out of nowhere, produced canoe paddlers who were finalists at the Junior Worlds and established canoeing in the Pacific. And I really believe that somehow that circle, somehow there's a young lady shows up and wins the first Olympic women's C1 medal. Excellence travels in small circles. I have this picture. This is sort of a work canoe. When I showed up, this is what we had. Drew helped me start a program at Burnaby High in February, and we'd try and go out in this boat. And Drew had a great way with the kids, as well as training like a dog. So Drew would finish those unbelievably hard workouts and suffering me trying to teach him technique. And then he would spend the time in what was sort of a war canoe. And Drew, with myself, traveled the province, trying to teach canoeing, get it started. And a lot of the legacy clubs that are still there today came out of that. Everywhere we went, you see Heather there, Drew in the picture. We weren't an overly good looking group, I think we can all say. But combining being an incredible athlete, Drew would spend the time, travel, spend the time with the kids all the time. Finally, somehow about in May, we decided we were gonna take all these kids to the national championships, even though they had never been in a race in their life. One of the problems was, Drew and I said, we don't have a war canoe. And Drew said, we can borrow one. I said, well, Drew, people don't like to lend me war canoes. So Drew, of course, said, well, you know what, self-respecting C1 paddler from Winnipeg wouldn't have a war canoe. I said, what? There's a war canoe in Winnipeg? Drew said, yeah. I said, well, it must be old and beat up. He says, well, it's from 1973, but it's never been in the water. It's 2 people can pick it up. It's so light. So I said, can we get it? Drew says, sure. So long story short, on the most incredible, dangerous drive ever, we stopped in Winnipeg to get the war canoe. Now you'd think normally you would need a key to get in the club, but somehow Drew got us in the club. And to this day, I still think we stole the war canoe. We loaded it and we took it to, and showed up in Montreal with all these kids from Burnaby Lake. So before we get to the final, and I know I'm going over my time, we took a bunch of these kids and we raised juvenile men's war canoe. And it was the kids' first race ever. War canoe coaches always say things like that where I come from in the East, but it's not the kids' really first race. This was the kids' first race. They were all from the same grade 12 class. Drew had motivated them. They came fourth by 2/100ths of a second. And it was unbelievable. I was coxswain. We had a girls' crew there who did great by any standard. And Drew had them waiting because we had junior men's war canoe, where we were able to take 4 of the kids out, put in Drew, Scott Selby, Biss Yonda, who was 80 years old at the time, and racing junior men's war canoe. And we got up to the start line, the gun went, and at first maybe I thought I had a heart attack and died, because after 75 meters, we were a boat length ahead. And then in what I used to call my pre-Ritalin days, I yelled, if you kids give me 10 of the hardest strokes of your life, we are going to be champions. And they did. And now we were open water ahead. There's only one problem. We'd never been in a race before, and now we had 875 meters left to go. I yelled Drew Mitchell's name 50 times. Drew, Drew, I need it. And every time. And like God had given me something, the 2 crews we had to beat were in the lanes next to us. And every time they started coming, I yelled Drew's name, and he would pull and I would paddle, and we'd pull over to the lane, and the wash would smash those boats. And sure enough, we crossed the line, and Drew Mitchell won that working race. And there's something else about the people, and you can't see it in this picture. At the 500-meter mark, I looked over. Hugh Fisher, Colin Shaw, Jeremy Abbott, Heather Taylor were running down the side of that wall like little kids, yelling and screaming. And that moment for me, there's not a year goes by that I'm teaching something that I talk about, because I learned that you could be great like Hugh Fisher and Drew Mitchell and be part of something. Drew Mitchell gave something to those kids. Every now and then I hear from them and they tell me, Tony, that was the best time of my life. And Drew, I know you've done so much. I hope that picture right there, those 10 strokes, I never yelled anybody's name so much because I could count on someone. There we were. I've been lucky. Coach world champions in kayak and canoe, Olympic medalists. That's the greatest moment of my coaching career. Drew, thank you. There they were. Warren Edwards, soon winning the junior men's world canoe trophy. 6 months before, he never knew what a canoe was. And that's the tie-in. Finally, whenever both of my sons, one paddling and coxing, when they win that trophy, the CCA has a very strict policy of engraving the trophies. People have been kicked out or troubled, but somehow they managed on the Frank Amiot trophy to inscribe 1982. And my son, in a state of inebriation, sent me this picture from CCA. And that's what it says. The West is best. Mitchell, ultimate team player, unselfish, there for everyone, the talented and the rhythmically impaired, everybody. Finally, Drew, I've only ever done this one other time, and this is going to be the second. I went to a coaching thing once, and Alex Bowman's coach, Dan Otiani, was speaking about Bowman winning the Olympic gold medal. And he talked about, he watched the first 3 lengths of the medley, picked up his program, started walking away. People said, oh my God, you never watched the end? But coach said, didn't have to. I've seen it so many times. I was sitting in a motorboat in Gainesville, Georgia, coaching. I got a phone call. Steve Giles had just won World Championship, C1000. Press called me. My God, Tony, you must have been disappointed during the state you're not there. I said, didn't have to. I've seen it in practice, 10 times 1,000. Learned it from Hugh Fisher. People said to me, I told Albert and some of the guys that was doing this for you, he said, yeah, but you don't know Drew. You haven't seen him in a dragon boat or outrigger. He said, yeah, I have. I've seen it 1,000 times. So congratulations, Drew. You've done so much for the group I knew, and I can't imagine how much you've done for all these people. Thank you, Drew. Okay.
Well done, Tony. We're going to pass it over to Graham now to shift from Drew over to Hugh. So Graham, over to you.
Yeah. Wow.
Hugh Fisher was a revelation for me. I don't often get to use that word. When our team, Grace Morissette, Jan, Bob Woodman, started doing the research on Hugh Fisher, we had a self-imposed constraint of 2 pages, and it was ridiculous. We had to throw out like 10 pages of history on Drew Mitchell to get it into just 2 pages there. And I don't know if Alan Morris is here, because I really don't want to say any more other than if you can just throw that slide up there, Eric, on Hugh Fisher. It's the best we could do to take his life and try and squeeze it into a half slide here of, Olympic gold medalist, co-founded Falls Creek, founded Pemberton, co-founded CORA, IVF World Sprint medalist over and over, inducted into so many Hall of Fames. And we were long overdue to get this Hall of Fame so that Hugh Fisher could be inducted into the Outrigger Hall of Fame. If Alwyn Morris and Karen Tomlinson, either of them are there, please hand them the floor and let's see what they have to say about Hugh.
All right, I'm hoping, thank you, Graham. I'm hoping that Karen is on the call somewhere. If so, unmute and the feather gets passed to you, Karen, if you're here.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, I know you said at the beginning you were getting people to present who were new people back in the day, but I've actually only known Hugh for like just over 20 years. So I think all will go back and do a little bit more of the history. So I was actually in my second year of teaching at Pemberton Secondary School, and somehow I was convinced to go along as a chaperone to the Kelowna Dragon Boat Festival with the high school dragon boat team, the Leom Eagles. I didn't know anything about dragon boat. I really didn't know anything about paddling, but I went along. And that sort of started the next 20 years for me of hanging out with Hugh at lakes and venues and various and assorted places and learning lots along the way. So I'm just going to do a little intro, and then I'm actually going to pass it on to a few other people that are here. So this is what I know about Hugh. He's unassuming. So to the kids, he's Hugh, or he's Hug, or he's Huge Fish. He's not Dr. Fisher. He's not an Olympic medalist. He's just Hugh. And it's funny because recently I went down to the BC Sports Hall of Fame to look at a dragon boat exhibition, and there's Hugh's medals in a little case down there with a picture. And I took a picture and I texted him and I said, look where I am. And he goes, is that where my medals are? He goes, I thought those were in my sock drawer. So that's sort of Hugh to a T. He's a technician. He breaks down the stroke so well for the kids. He explains all the parts in a way that they really understand. And really, he's just a big kid at heart too. So he loves to have fun with the kids on the water. When we travel to events and things like that, he's usually the one I have to worry about more than the kids. He's the one that goes missing. He's the one who I hold onto his passport for him, things like that. So I could tell lots of fun stories about hanging out with you over the last 20 years, but what I'm going to do is I've got some kids on here. I call them kids. They're like 30 now. So the first one that's on here it's Kayla, and she's got 2 sick kids at home. So she actually sent me a little blurb to read on her behalf. She said, I started paddling when I was 13 years old. At first, it was just a way for me to get away from a difficult home situation and connect with my dad. But it wasn't long before it consumed me in the best way and brought me true joy. I dragon boated, kayaked, high kneel canoed, and my favorite of all was outrigger. Hugh's passion for paddling was infectious. His consistency and devotion allowed me the space to find excellence not only in the boat, but in life. The tools I was given elevate any practice or race. They taught me that with a combination of hard work and dedication, I can achieve anything. There's a phrase I'm sure everyone knows, it takes a village to raise a child. In this case, he was a big part of a lot of people's villages. Thank you, Hugh Fisher, for always showing up. Oh, sorry. And so I've also got, I'll start with Corey. I've got Corey Ray on here. So Corey, if you want to video up.
Hello. Oh, hello. I have known Hugh since the moment I was born. He literally delivered me. It was his first shift in Pemberton. He had just moved the day before. And I decided I wanted to meet him because he's a pretty impressive guy. And so Hugh, from that moment, he's been so many roles in my life. He's my best friend's father. He was, of course, my doctor. And then why we're all here, he was my paddling coach. I think his most difficult role for me was probably being his paddling person, because I was not very good. I am not going to lie about that. I will not be up in the Hall of Fame with him, but he never, ever gave up on me and on anyone. Pemberton is such a small town, and, you know, kids can get up to a lot of different things. And Hugh introducing paddling to us was, like Kayla said, it was a way to just, you were in our town, but you were out of our town. It introduced us to a world that was out of our school district, introduced us to people that just were incredible. They were such impressive people, and Hugh just stood so big amongst them all. And he was a person that no matter the role he was playing, he made you strive to be better. And I don't think I'm alone in saying that. It wasn't out of fear or anything like that. He's just such a incredibly impressive and humble person. And like, Karen asked me to talk about him, and I've written notes and PowerPoints, and I've talked to people, and Hugh is Hugh. Anyone who knows him has the honor of knowing him, and anyone who doesn't just hears these stories. I am so thankful for everything that he has ever done for us and never giving up on us. And I thought a funny story to tell was when I first ever joined the kayak crew. I was in grade 7, and Reva and I were the same age. And I think our moms put us in the crew just so that they could focus on where we were. And we fastly realized that if we tipped our boat, we'd actually be able to get picked up by the rescuers. And although we'd be wet, we'd pass the finish line in no time. And I thought, this is the best thing ever. Why would anyone paddle across the finish line? And then I remember standing on shore, so cold and wet, and Hugh's heat was up, and watching him paddle for the first, like really watching him in that race mode, it made me want to be better. I will admit I got slightly better, but still not there. But he never gave up. His only standard of being on the team was that you tried. And that was something that, again, I don't have words to describe how just impressive Hugh Fisher is and how thankful I am for everything he has done for me, especially bringing me into this world. So I'll let Dana spit. Hugh, if you're listening, I love you and I thank you and cannot wait to give you a big hug when you return.
Nicely done. Graham, back to you.
No, I've got a few more. So Dana Gucci is coming on next.
You are muted, Karen.
Hey, Dana, we can't hear you. And you're not muted, so I don't know what's going on. No. Try your volume. No.
All right, Karen, I'm sorry, Karen, just
Well,
in the time.
Yeah, I can read Dana's actually because she sent it to me too. If you want, I'll do it really quick.
Thank you, Karen.
Sorry, Dana. So this is Dana's. She goes, I've been told I don't have much time, so bear with me while I ramble as fast as I coherently can. It's crazy for me to think that I've known Hugh for over 10 years now. I met him when I was 14 years old after I'd been hoodwinked by a friend into trying dragon boat. And since then, we've been through dragon boat festivals, Outrigger World Championships, BC Summer Games, and so much more. I had never been a big sports person, but there I was at my first practice, and this guy named Hugh was standing at the back of the boat telling us pirate jokes and teaching us how to hold the paddle the right way. as unnatural as that felt at the time, and just being super friendly. Hugh was so kind and patient and just fun to be around. He gave me a confidence I never knew I could have in myself and got me hooked on this sport that we all love. Throughout every race, time trial, and practice, I had a great sense of comfort knowing that I had his support and guidance. As a coach, Hugh is the best of the best. He works with every athlete in a way that works for them and has this uncanny sense of knowing exactly what each person needs individually. For me, it was tough love. Each year for our time trials, I gave him my very firm instructions to yell at me the whole way. Don't let up. And how he kept from losing his voice after my trial alone, I honestly have no idea. He talked me the whole way out to the start line and wouldn't stop yelling and pushing me until I crossed the finish, and then went straight into telling me I'd done a good job in debriefing the trial. Those are some of my favorite memories ever. I remember at the 2012 Outrigger Worlds in Calgary, I had a V1 race and I was terrified. I was panicking so badly and marshalling, and all of a sudden there he was, talking me down and giving me the confidence I needed to get my butt into the boat and give it my all. I can't tell you exactly what it was he said, but I went from bawling my eyes out to laughing uncontrollably. And you better believe he was right there waiting for me when I came off the water. Let's be real here. I botched that race, but looking at him as my coach, you'd never know it. He had the biggest smile and was so proud that I had tried. Even during times when he wasn't technically my coach, he was there on the other end of the phone or an email to answer questions and boost me up. He is always in his athlete's corner, and I cannot even begin to express my gratitude to him for being my coach. Now, Hugh is an athlete. God, he makes it look easy. I haven't often got to see him race, but when I have, it blows me away. I mean, come on, the man is a machine, and I'm so proud to call him my mentor. I hope that I'll get to race with him one of these days, preferably not against him though. I'm a little too competitive now to set myself up to lose. I've been coaching on and off for the last 6-ish years, and I can genuinely say that I've always come back to thinking, what would Hugh do? What would he say? His voice is always in the back of my head while I coach and when I practice, and all I can hope for is that I'm able to give future paddlers even a portion of the same experience he's given all of us. Hugh Fisher is a gift to the paddling community, and I'm honored to have trained with him and to know him. There you go.
Karen, well done for stepping in at that so wonderfully. So thank you very much for that section. And Graham, I'm handing the mic back to you for our next inductee.
We have Alwyn on here too still.
Seriously? I'm sorry. We can wait. I would love to hear from Alwyn. Please. Sir. Alwyn, you might be muted. I can't tell.
Supposedly unmuted.
You're still muted. I can see that.
No, he's perfectly audible. So Alwyn, welcome. And I'm going to speak for James, I believe.
Mute. I'm okay now? No?
Let her rip, Alwyn.
You're good. You're good, Alwyn. You're good.
I'm good?
Yeah, you're good.
Well, hello from sunny Florida. Drew, great to see you. Tony,
Hey, Alwyn.
Tony, I'm so glad that you remembered the 10 times 1,000. That's one of our premier fun times to do that type of workout. Well, I mean, I'm honored, unbelievably so, to be asked to speak for Hugh. Hugh and I spent, oh my God, so much time together in our quest to do something special at the Olympic Games, and that shows for itself. But the other side of the coin is this, is that Hugh and Colin Shaw actually got a chance to paddle in LA for Blazing Paddles, out of Newport Beach with a friend of ours named Billy Woodford. And I remember them coming back from the Molokai race and coming back to the training we were doing in Vancouver. and talking about the race. And I remember them saying how thrilling it was and how great it was. And so from that standpoint on, I mean, when Hugh and I and Colin and the big group that we had at Burnaby Lake were training together, it was always on the back of our mind, my mind, of saying, what would this race be like in Hawaii? And we got a chance to go in 82, I remember. It was an incredible experience, probably topped off with the fact that we actually slept on the beach the night before the race in what we call the quabi condos, because there were all these quabis, which are really like picker balls that you slept on top of. And I don't think many of us slept very well that night, but nonetheless, we raced in Hawaii and we did okay. We did better than I think we thought we would do, but it was a thrilling experience. Obviously, the following year, we got a chance to go back, and with a group of guys all from Flatwater, and who majority of them trained in Burnaby Lake, and we didn't sleep on the beach that the night before, luckily for us, and we got a chance to stay somewhere else. And it was outside, it was on a gentleman's lawn, but nonetheless, we got a chance to be there. And you know, we went down. I remember that morning we went down, and you know, everybody's getting ready to race, and we were used to sort of getting our heads together in terms of preparing to do this race. We had done it before, and we knew that was going to be interesting, and we went through the ceremonial piece, which I think is a real big part of what outrigger paddling is all about. I mean, it's special. It comes from a very different culture, and it's very important to understand that. And it was really, really important, I think, for me certainly to see that. But I remember also that they said the word was coming in that the seas were big that day. They were very big, and I was saying to myself, okay, that's what the seas are. Okay, let's see what happens here. And I remember the start, and then when you get to the tip of Molokai at the beach, I think there's a hotel right at the end of the corner there, then all of a sudden the seas start to kick up. And I remember looking and saying, I think I'd rather be in the boat than in the water. And I remember saying, you know, we're in the middle of this race now, and let's keep going. And I got a chance to stroke the boat for 2 shifts, and it was spectacular. It was such an incredible experience, and I owe that experience to Hugh. You know, he made it so interesting to be part of, and he and I, you know, had done so much paddling together anyway, but this was different. And you know, and yes, it was just before the Olympic Games, the year before, but you know, we said to each other when we were going, we were saying, why not? I mean, this is really important. You know, I mean, you spend your life in a kayak, and you know what you're going to go and do at the Olympic Games. You want to compete at a high level, but you want to experience paddling in so many other dimensions, because paddling is not just about kayak paddling. It's everything else. And that's why I look to Hugh and say, you know what? You know, he's not just he wasn't just a partner I paddled with at the Olympic Games. I mean, when I first went to BC, he was the one who opened his door and said, come on and live with me and my mother and our family. And then he opened the doors to those things. And to me, that was so fantastic, and such a pleasure to be part of, and certainly being part of his life as a paddler, and getting to know him, and getting to experience other opportunities in terms of the paddling fraternity. I can't say more. It was just incredible. I know Graham and I had a chat, and we said, you know, but you know, paddling is at the Olympic Games is the Olympic Games, but paddling goes way beyond the Olympic Games. And I remember at one point, even Hugh said, we should go and try this other event. And it wasn't Dragon Boat at the time. It was another boat that they were doing in India, where they all stood up in this canoe. And they said, what do you think of that? And I went, oh my God. I mean, how would we go even begin to even think about trying to do that event? But that was Hugh. I mean, he always pushed those boundaries. He always made us, think a little bit more about just what we were doing in terms of our paddling escapades, if I could put it in those words. So, like I said, I'm extremely honored, and I don't know a better guy who would be given this such an honor to be part of that Hall of Fame. And Hugh, I hope you're online, and we haven't had a chance to talk in a while, but hey, buddy, congratulations. I think you've been an incredible person in my life, and certainly my family. As you know, you spent time with my mom and our family. So I think that I'm so proud of you, and so proud of what you've been able to do, and so proud of what we were able to do together as friends, and as certainly as paddlers together, and family. So with that, congratulations, and I don't know a better guy who deserves this. Thanks.
All right, Graham, over to you for inductee number 3 and his people speaking on behalf of him.
You bet. And I have to say, having had an opportunity to talk with Alwyn earlier this week, and him telling me about his experiences there, I'm so glad he took the time to share that with everybody. That was fantastic to hear from him twice. So our next inductee is James Langdon Van Nostrin. And most of our inductees are like athletes and coaches and builders, and James is a bit different. He's a pioneer. He makes canoes, and we slide up. There we go. We take it for granted. We go and we just hop in boats and go. But those boats didn't just show up magically. Somebody designed those boats, and James and Greg Barton were responsible for the Clipper Advantage. James was responsible for that North Beach OC4 that you see at quite a few clubs. And as Melanie Whittall can attest, James was responsible for 120 plus Sea Lion OC1s. So I'm just going to hand the floor over to Benjamin, let him have a say about James, and I'll just step back for a while here. Ben? Eric, how are we doing?
Well, Ben appears to not be.
Hello? Hello?
Lynne. Hi, Lynne.
Yeah, sorry. Benjamin had his name up on my site. I'm not very good at this. This is the first time for me. I just wanted to thank you for actually recognizing James. I must say, in the last 8.5 years, we've missed him rather desperately. And he also, one of my best memories, having lived with him all those years, is going to the first outrigger races in Gibson's, and thinking at the time, gee, it's a good thing he's there to tie on the amas or tie on the various bits and pieces. I'm not a boat builder. I don't even swim. So, but I remember standing there going, gee, it's a good thing. You guys would be in real trouble if someone couldn't tie all those bits on. And I know he loved every part of boating, of every kind. Before he died, we were going to be gypsies. We were going to go travel the world and paddle everything. But of course, that didn't happen. But I just wanted to thank you for recognizing him. And I often wonder what he would have done if he was still with us. Anyway, I'm going to go to Mel because I wasn't really ready for this, and I'm not very good with this. So thank you very much. And thank you from his sons as well.
So Mel, if you're on screen, you can, there you go. And by the way, Lynne, you did a great job. You're a Zoom champion. Don't worry about it. So Mel, over to you.
Lynne, thank you so much for coming and honoring what a fabulous man. James Van Nostrum was an artist. I can barely talk about him because he meant so much to me. Because he's the guy among all of our paddlers, he's the guy who designs the boat. He's the artist. He's the man who says, and not says, but sees what can happen in design. And if it wasn't for James, we probably wouldn't have the Sea Lion and we wouldn't have gone into production. We bought this mold like on a hope and a prayer, and we brought it up into Canada. We had a meeting at Clipper Canoe, and Lynne and Marlon and Mary and James were there. And true Clipper Canoe style, when you have a meeting, you usually go upstairs and have lunch. And I remember saying, asking them very timidly, very like totally afraid that they were going to say no, because I really wanted them to take on the project to build solo outriggers in Canada. It was so important for me. And I said, would you like to do this project? We have the molds. We have all of the bits and pieces. We have actually 2 molds. And everyone in the room turned to James and said, James, would you like to do this? James said, oh, absolutely. I want to do this. And you could just see his enthusiasm for this. So he was on. And in the time that we had probably about 6 to 7 months to build a new hull. We were going to, well, no, sorry, we were going to do a new deck and we're going to leave the hull. And I realized at that time, I spent every single day at Western Canoeing and I was there all day long. And I was able to work alongside James while we redesigned from the old Sea Lion to a new Sea Lion that we were going to present. I got to see him in action. And I also realized what a very generous man he was. He was generous with his skill, he was generous with his art, generous with his knowledge. And I got to I realized I had this incredible experience of being able to walk through a process with him. And he would consult with me. He'd say, well, what do you want? What do you see? What do you think that is going to be good? So, and he valued my opinion, which was not expected because I had so much respect for him. James Van Nostrum certainly designed the Sea Lion Canoe, and we designed 2 of them to sit on top and also our cockpitted version. We produced over 120 of them, but his name is on hundreds of thousands of canoes that he's designed for Clipper Canoe. And I would say in the world of recreational canoeing, he's one of the premier and foremost designers that the West has ever come, that we've ever produced. He is our modern day Mason. And that is how I see James, as he had the versatility to be able to design an outrigger canoe and was really interested in the culture of it, as much as he was interested in the culture and the design of native canoes. And he was the first one. He was behind bringing the native canoes into fiberglass. And so that is an enormous achievement. Clipper Canoe enabled it. And the Marlon and Mary and Lynne and on all the people behind Clipper enabled this huge portfolio to happen. And I was lucky to be part of that family and that movement. Everyone had great respect for James as he walked around in the production room back of Clipper Canoe, which is my favorite place to be. And I love the smell of the fiberglass and the sounds and to see the big molds that come rolling in, because they're, the advantage is 40 feet and it takes up the whole space. And when they're designing it. And it is nothing more than unbelievably thrilling, like winning the race when they pull a mold and they pull a new canoe out, and to see it come out, to take it from the very beginning and to take it then on the water. what a thrill it was. It was an unbelievable thrill of my life to be able to take something from an idea and bring it to market. And James was an integral part to it. When we first started Gibson's, I remember there was only 23 outrigger canoes on sort of BC. And we needed all 23 of those on the first year of Gibson's because we had so many participants and so many racers. And we said, how are we going to we don't have enough trailers to get all these boats. Well, James had it figured out. This man, he knew exactly how to figure things out. No problem was too much. I remember him I remember going to Clipper and seeing the trailer with all of these outriggers on it. And he must have had 16 outriggers between his truck and a trailer. It was amazing. So we did it. We certainly got all the big boats there, and he knew how to rig them, and he helped everyone, and he was totally involved with the whole background of the race, so that the racers could go and have a great day. And that was James. He lived, eat, breathed paddling. It was his art. It was his soul. I want to thank CORA for recognizing him, because we don't recognize very much of the people who are the artists of the builders, and the people who actually build the paddles, build the canoes, build the clubs, build the paddlers. So CORA, thanks so much.
Thanks, Mel. Nicely said. Is there anyone else? I think there's one Lynne that's not here, but I think we had. Are we missing anyone, or Graham? Can we move on to Sheila?
I think we can. If Sheila is still online at the Wi-Fi at the Starbucks, that would be wonderful. Sheila, are you there? Melanie, that was wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, I'm still here. I've moved into the car though. The Starbucks is closing here on the 401.
Don't start driving yet.
No.
Eric, can you put that slide up there for Sheila? Eric? I know, small print, big shoes. I was stunned when I started looking up Sheila Kuiper. I think I met her once at a gorge race down in Steveston and just said hi and not really knew who she was. But when I started doing some research, and I'm like, who are we going to get to speak on her behalf? Wendy Perkins, Pam Bateller, Mallory Nicholson, Lawrence Vincent Lapointe. And then out of the blue, I got a message. And so, Eric, can you play a video for us? I think this will sum it all, and then we can have a few words from anybody else there. So Eric, can you roll that video, please? Tony, you're still sharing.
Graham, I don't have that video available right now, so I'll pull it, but can you move on to our first speaker?
Do we have a Mallory Nicholson or a Wendy Perkins in the audience?
This is Wendy, if you can hear me. I know Mallory's on the call as well. So Mallory, how about if I go first? I'm really honored to be in the presence of all the builders of our sport, and I'm doubly honored to have Sheila nominated to this Hall of Fame. She's a very, very deserving person in all aspects of paddle sport and has made her mark in outrigger almost as much as in other single blades. Not double blades yet. We haven't persuaded her over to the dark side. But in single blades, I first met Sheila when she started at Burloak Canoe Club, and she was a force back then, not just in personal achievement, but more so in building the sport and in seeing the opportunities where others didn't see them. When others accepted that women weren't allowed to paddle canoe, Sheila said, why not? And although for us now it's a given, finally, in this year of the Olympics being held in Tokyo, where Sheila, were she not pulled over on the side of the 401, would have recently joined us from Tokyo. Were it not for COVID, she would have been presenting medals for women in canoe. Her work from that day to this has not lost the focus on why not? Why can't women compete equally in a sport that they love as much as the men? And not only did she show the way in how to compete, she showed the way in how to work the political scene to make it possible. So rather than looking at the pie as being full with the men's card and the race card, Sheila looked at it as, why not include women? Why not be racing opportunities for women at the nationals, at the worlds, and at the Olympics? So it's taken all this time. Is it almost 30 years, Sheila? Almost 30 years from the day, and Mallory will appreciate that, when Sheila and I were in the canoe club at Burloak Canoe Club, and we had a little film crew down there talking about why women could, what it was that was restricted, why women couldn't paddle the boats. And for an example, Sheila looked up and said, well, there's an IC4 that women are not allowed to paddle. And that day we got that boat down and on the water, and Sheila was the first one pioneering there and again in flat water and breaking the barriers. And she's done this with her own passion, with her own dollar, traveled around the world from Brazil to, I don't know, Sheila, Cuba to Russia, promoting women in canoe. She took that passion into Outrigger, and we had some adventures along the way, including we did in Thailand. We paddled, what are they called, Sheila? I can't remember the name of the boat. Swan boats in Thailand, where Sheila stepped up to coach a crew and once again win a gold medal there. And she transferred that passion as well, as many of paddlers on this call have, to Dragon Boat, where she excelled not just in bringing community crews together, where she puts anybody in a boat at any time and they'll have fun because they're with Sheila. But she also transferred it into the world-class athlete level that she operates at. So from there to Outrigger, and I'd love to talk and reflect on Hugh's stories about doing the Molokai. Sheila has many stories like that, the many that I love to tell, including not only jumping into the boat, but jumping up and over the boat and missing the change, flying out the other side. That's adrenaline for you, and that's Sheila for you. So it's a real honor to be here today, and I really thank CORA for the opportunity to recognize Sheila, to recognize not only what she's done for the sport on the global level, but nationally, and certainly for our Wainui club. We would not be the club we are had Sheila not joined us and said, why not? So thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, Wendy. Nicely done. And I don't know if Mallory wants to go before our video guest, or Graham, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I'd love to hear Mallory. We had a great email exchange, so I'd love to hear her words, and then I think we can follow it up with our video. It'll be a 1-minuter.
Sure. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak, and thank you for recognizing so many wonderful people in the paddling community. It's been great to hear these stories. My name is Mallory Nicholson. I'm joining from Victoria today, and I came of age sprint canoeing at the Burloak Canoe Club in Oakville, Ontario, and Sheila was a huge part of that upbringing. I've been living on the West Coast for the past 10 years, but this past August, I saw Sheila for the first time in a while on a Zoom call when Burloak had a viewing party for the finals of the women's canoe events at the Olympics. Sheila was absolutely beaming, and rightly so, because that was that was really the night that her baby had finally grown up, that women's canoeing had received this event at the Olympic Games, or finally had its birth at the Olympic Games. And none of that would have happened without Sheila. Going back to the 90s and the early 2000s, she was the first and for a long time, one of the only voices advocating for women's canoe and its inclusion at all levels of sprint canoe racing. I benefited tremendously from her efforts in my own career. I got to compete for Canada during the first years that women's sprint canoe events were competed internationally, and together with my partner, Laurence, became the first official world champions in women's C2. So I think about that, you know, that last meeting with Sheila, and then also one of my first memories of Sheila, which was, of course, when I was back at Burloak, brand new, starting out, very uncertain and unstable, particularly in the C1 that I had taken up for whatever reason. And I spent so much time in the water. I tipped like crazy. And Sheila, whenever I did see her on the water, was fast and smooth and incredibly stable. And for some reason, one day she asked me if I wanted to go out in C2 at a time when I had no accomplishments and no signs really of having any skill at that point. And so we went out in C2. Sheila had the idea that I could follow behind her, and then I'd have the benefit of watching her and be able to follow her and learn from doing that. But she hadn't really cleared it first or scrutinized my abilities enough. And I really didn't know how to steer much at all at that point. So we zigzagged, I think, down to the first bridge. And Sheila was a great sport about it. She was very encouraging and extremely positive. And the only kind of crack in that positivity I noticed was when I actually fell out of the canoe, leaving her alone at the front of the boat, unable to get to the side. And she was still positive in her words, but I could see her face was saying, like, I've had enough of slumming it with this partner for one day. So all to say, Sheila was a champion for female paddlers, as much on the personal level as she was on the world level. And so while my stories of Sheila are from the world of sprint canoe, I know that she has been a significant influence across the paddling world, including in outrigger and dragon boat as well. And the reason for all of that is that as a person, she is, like many of the people that are being honored here today, absolutely bursting with passion for paddling and for being on the water. And she has the generosity of spirit to share that passion with others like myself. So Sheila, from where you are in the Starbucks parking lot, thank you for the difference you made for me and for other paddlers, and congratulations for the recognition.
Thanks, Mallory. And with Graham's blessing, I'm gonna just play a short video from someone else who wants to say a few words. Bear with me 1 second. Here we go. Oops. My friend.
No sound, Eric. None whatsoever.
All right, sorry about that.
Hi there, my name is
Eric, mute both your screens.
Hi there, my name is Vancouver. I'm a member of Parliament here in Hilton, and it's my sincere honor and privilege to talk about my friend and former teammate Sheila Kuiper today as she is being inducted into the Outrigger Canoeing Hall of Fame. Sheila is a person who belongs in every canoeing Hall of Fame. She's inspiring, she's incredible, and she's really changed the sport of canoe kayak in so many innumerable ways. I think about this past summer when we watched female canoe paddlers paddling for the very first time at the Olympics, Canadians bringing home 2 medals. That simply wouldn't have happened without the leadership and the advocacy of Sheila Kuiper. I know that she's also been extremely active in the sport of outrigger canoeing. I have only really done outrigger once when I did the Molokai Challenge a couple of years ago. I would love to do it again. But just imagining what an impact Sheila's had in so many paddle sports, regardless of the size, type, or direction you're stroking in, you know who Sheila Kuiper is. And Sheila, congratulations on your day. You've been such an incredible role model for so many of us. Congratulations.
All right, over to you.
Well done, Eric. Woohoo!
All right. Graham, I'm going to hand this over to you. I'm getting feedback from different computers, but I think, Sheila, I know that you're present on the call, and I'm wondering if you want a chance to toast us from the Starbucks parking lot.
Sorry. Yes, absolutely. I'm humbled and flattered and honored to be honored by the, Canadian, Outrigger Association. And just to listen to all of the builders and the athletes and, the people that, who have told stories about all the people being inducted, and just to be a part of that first step that CORA is now making as a Hall of Fame, and even to think that, just a few simple words, and that's why it's so important that we empower kids. I mean, listening to the stories about Hugh Fisher and and Drew and all of these things, like really, it is paddling. It is a sense of ohana, as we talk about, in the outrigger paddling world, this sense of family, this sense of community that really binds and pulls people together. And when you listen to Kayla and how important she talked about the self-confidence, and, like often it's the coaches that have confidence in the kids to give the kids the confidence they need to compete. And I'm driving back from OFSA cross country here in Toronto, up in Lakefield, and like, what an incredible day, from the morning sunrise through to the spectacular day of watching these kids, in every age category, from the novice, runner to the senior runner. And the theme is finish on empty. And these kids give it their all, and they, they're actually there. And I was talking about it. They're not there because they expect to win. Some of them for sure are expecting to win, but they're there to compete, to be the best versions of themselves. And CORA is asking us all, and all of our paddle sports are asking us to help build people to be the best versions of themselves, to contribute to community. That idea of giving back makes us more whole than our own competition and our own rewards. Hugh Fisher talks about, like, oh, I thought those were in my sock drawer. So like, it's not what we receive, but what we do that fills our buckets. And so I hope that I've only really just started to make changes in the world of paddling. I know there's so much more that I want to do in the world of paddling and in the world of sport. And we're on the beginning of the next change, right? Like, I mean, you know, with the transitions that are coming and how people are coming out and identifying and feeling comfortable in their own skin, how is that going to change sport and competition? And how exciting is it that people can be who they want to be and they can rise to their own personal best levels? And if we can have any little part of that, then I feel blessed and grateful to be in the position I am and to have the life I am and to have the freedom to do all this. And I apologize. I'm a teacher at heart, I guess, and I ramble on. So I hope some of that made sense. But again, thank you for, you know, putting my name alongside some of the huge icons, the people that, you know, when I got into this sport, I was like, wow, I remember meeting, you know, Hugh Fisher. I remember the people that are talking, Tom Hall, right? Like, you know, I mean, and the fact, Mel Whittall, Jackie Weber, I mean, Kamini, Jain, like there's so many great people. How do you decide? So thank you for the honor. And I hope I can continue to honor the honor that you've given me today. C'est tout fini.
Thank you, Sheila. Safe driving.
Thanks.
All right, Graham, we're going to leave Sheila and her pals, Mallory and Wendy and Adam behind, and we're going to move over to Gary. So Graham, over to you.
Can we have a slide, please, Eric? Next one. There you go. Drew Mitchell, if you're still on the line after I finish my spiel, if you'd care to say a few words about one of your great friends, Gary, I think that would be appropriate. Like I said, I don't think we have anybody here from Lotus. That Barb Alley celebration of life today may have kept them full of feelings to sort out. So the next three inductees, I cannot separate. Gary Mancell, his brother Jim Mancell, and Bob Disbrow, as we quite often say, a brother from a different mother. These three guys were very much the core foundation of Lotus, as best as we can tell from everything I've gotten from Jim and Gary and Grace and Doug. These three guys were the heart and soul of Lotus. You know, that they were the Lotus Eaters. They were Lotus Sports Club. They started all three of these guys together, started the Lotus Iron. They started the Lotus Icebreaker double hull race. Gary and David Boulding and Hugh Fisher co-founded CORA in 1992. And their achievements are almost inseparable. You know, it's when I had a session with Gary Mancell, and he just kept telling me all of these things that happened. The first OC6 trailer in Canada, the first OC6 iron race in Canada, everything, it just went on and on and on. And if we could flip to the next slide on Jim Mancell. And there we go. I mean, if you look through the bold points on Jim Mancell, it's almost identical to Gary. These two guys are inseparable from the start of Lotus until now. Even the fact that they are both volunteers with Coquitlam Search and Rescue in most of their free time now. There is these two brothers. You know, I would have loved to have Doug Mancell here and talk about his brothers. But I spent enough time in the boats with both of them at Lotus to sort of come to respect everything they have done for Outrigger. And if we could flip to the third brother from Lotus, Bob Disbrow, not a name many people will know. unless you go into the Lotus clubhouse, and they'll quite often refer to the Disbro, which is a Hawaiian class racer, which was the first Hawaiian class racer in Canada, which was a canoe that Bob Disbro paid for out of his pocket when Jim Mancell said we should have a Hawaiian class racer. But Bob Disbro is a giant among philanthropists. If you go online and Google Bob Disbro, you will see that he has contributed huge sums of money to just about every possible organization, foundation, YMCA, Wood River Community, Vancouver Heritage, all Alzheimer's Society, BC Children's Hospital. The man does well in his business, and he spreads that wealth around. I was stunned to find out that he was a co-producer for a Leo Awards winner film, Canadian film, Indian Horse. Like I said, all three of these guys, if you Google them, you will see next to nothing about their outrigger achievements, but a ton of other achievements will show up. Their history as lawyers, as Vancouver Police Department officers, as investment legends. So Drew, are you there? Could you maybe say a few words about your good friend Gary Mancell and any of the other two you might know?
Absolutely, Graham, and thank you for the opportunity to do that. Gary and I have had a long relationship. It certainly started out as the big competition in the Lower Mainland between Lotus and False Creek on the dragon boat racing scene, and the Mancell brothers, again, Doug included, and Don, who's less well known. He was a flat water paddler, but the Mancells were a force. Jim and Gary made, in the world of paddling, they made shit happen, and it was really impressive what they were able to do at Lotus. And I had the opportunity when I moved out to Port Moody in 1997 to actually paddle with Lotus for a little bit. These guys are amazing people. You get somebody like Bob Disbro, who's tremendously generous as a human being, contributing to a whole bunch of different opportunities in the canoeing world. He really did help support Lotus in a big way. I'm blessed to be able to say that Jim and Gary in particular are good friends. And I actually just called Gary. Unfortunately, he wasn't available. And I want to reinforce the honors that are being bestowed on them tonight, and that they are well deserving, all three of them. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Drew. Nothing like having somebody who knows them well to speak on their behalf. So Eric, what do we got next?
We have Ron. So I'll just put up that slide for you. Hold on one second. Oh, share. Oop, wrong one. There we go.
There you go, right there. So we're almost at time, but I do hope everybody can stay for our next three. This one will be short. We don't have Ron Kashula here. But, whereas Melanie, referred to James Van Nostrin as an artist, Ron Kashula is a builder, a manufacturer. There is a history that we discovered over the past 2 years with what he did. I think a lot of the guys on this call would know Ron Kashula's name and what he's done. After Lotus finished building the first two Malias at Lotus Sports Club, that mold went to Ron Kashula, and he was building the Canadian Malias for clubs up here, and those canoes have traveled. They have made the rounds. And in my conversation with Alwyn Morris earlier this week, he told me that he had Ron Kashula make him two Malias that he shipped on a freight train to Onawaki as their first canoes in Eastern Canada. And then apparently in the early 90s, a bunch of the Falls Creek guys got together with Ron Kashula, and they came up with a new canoe that everybody calls the Kalmar. And there's 30 plus Kalmars in BC. There's another 30 plus Kalmars down in PNW Orca. It is the most prevalent OC6 in the whole Pacific Northwest. And when Ryan Pogue had finished making the Bradley Lightnings and it had that Hawaiian hawk ama on it, he gave the mold to Ron Kashula, and Ron started cranking out those amas that there's a dozen clubs in CORA where they've got spare Hawaiian hawk amas that they just fit on any boat. So Ron's not here, and I don't know anybody else who might want to say something on his behalf, but much like James Van Nostrin, clubs have boats because of what he did with his factory. Eric? You're muted, Eric.
If you guys could see how many screens I'm operating at once now, you would sympathize. Anyway, it is a comedy of errors. Anyway, bear with me. So yeah, we're going to move from Ron over to Alan. So Graham, I'm going to have you just refer to Alan after I display this slide. So bear with me.
Yeah, Alan Carlson. He's in New Zealand right now. Hopefully he just got off the water. He told me it was a beautiful spring morning and he went for a paddle out somewhere, I guess, off of Auckland. Alan Carlson, Melanie and Andrea are going to speak on his behalf, but just the highlights here. Head coach with Falls Creek Racing Canoe Club, lead coach for Kamini Jain, represented Canada with CORA IVF. He was the IVF general secretary for the sprints a couple years, and he served on CORA as a president. So Andrea, Mel, if you would like to take the mic here and say something on behalf of Alan.
First of all, Alan, I didn't even recognize you. What's with the beard? You used to shave your legs. But we're pleased to see you. I'm glad to be able to talk. One thing to know about Alan is, first of all, Alan came on in the year 2000 with Falls Creek. No one had head coaches in the paddling sport clubs. And Alan came along, brought with him Ricky New, and together they created a template that I think we're still striving to fulfill after both of them left. One of the things about Alan, he's being nominated as a coach and a builder. And as a coach, he thinks of everything. So I commented on Tahiti when what he did in looking at the courses, he saw that there were certain lanes that at some point we got slower. So he decided he swam the entire 8 lanes underwater to find out what the bottom was like. Found out lanes 3, 4, 5 had a berm and changed our race strategy. And that is consistent with what Alan did. In year 2000, our club said, oh, this is a throwback to the Olympic. That's Hugh and Kamini. 2010, the second to last torch relay with only 200 paddlers following them down the creek. What Alan did is his precision, his completeness, his ability to make sure he knew everything that was going on so that he could support his athletes to be the best. And by joining IVF, he knew the ins and outs. By working with CORA, he wrote manuals so that people could actually read more about how the technique went. He was a technician unto himself. And what I've taken from all the other inductees is he was about paddling. We're not just outrigger paddlers. We're not just dragon boat paddlers. We're not surf ski. We're paddlers. And taking that into every part of the life, Alan has just gone forward now and has taken it into other sports, but definitely a technician, and our club has benefited so much from having him, Ricky, a team that we haven't been able to duplicate. And our goal is to, again, have a head coach to move us forward on one path. So Alan, thank you. And this is well deserved. Melanie, over to you.
Alan, thank you so much. This is well deserved for sure. I was on the hiring committee because I was on the board of False Creek at the time. And we were so in awe of you, knowing the work that you'd done with Kamini. And so we were just so blown away by everything that you represented and all the things that you could bring to the club. And as Andrea said, we're still trying to do that. We're all trying to do that. And you are a tactician, and you were an incredible one-on-one and personable coach. And I think that you helped a great deal of people and a lot of paddlers be better paddlers in a way that was really quite human. So thank you very much for everything that you've done. I think that your partnership with Rick, you know, was a beautiful thing, really. It was the best, because you were such a tactician. You are a tactician, and you are a precise man. And Rick was more, you know, nonverbal, very Hawaiian, very, you know, Polynesian. And although you guys were not the same, what you gave us was the full spectrum. And so it was a special time at False Creek for sure, having both of you there. Thank you.
All right, I think Alan's actually somewhere on the call, so he may want to tip his hat at the audience. So Alan, if you've got time, you look like you don't have a beard, so I think you deserve some screen time.
Here, here.
Yeah, no beard. That's just a winter Canadian thing. So yes, just to rub it into Andrea and Mel, it's not raining here. It was a nice balmy 22 this morning, but it was foggy on the water. So I actually had to turn on my GPS to find my way back to shore at one point. But you know, that's a minor problem. So thank you very much for everybody's kind words. It's great to be sitting here and revisiting all the wonderful people that I've met through paddling. I'm not sure if any of you know, but I spent the last 15 years off the water trying to recover from a shoulder injury. And so I've now been back on the water for a year, and it's absolutely amazing to be back out there. It was something that I've missed dearly. But yeah, being able to paddle pain-free is a wonderful thing. Yeah, I often think back, you know, the people I've met, the people we've come and gone in our lives through paddling, and the impact that we've had on each other. And it's like everybody said, it's a community that's different from almost any other sport. The people who are here because they absolutely love the water, they love the paddling, and it doesn't matter whether you're in a C1 canoe, you're in a war canoe, you're in a recreational canoe. People are just out loving the water and the camaraderie that comes with it. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you for joining us.
All right, Graham, I'm just gonna hand you the last slide for the day. Bear with me.
So I don't have the history that many of the other attendees at this session have with Jackie, but she was pretty special to me. I saw her pretty much every weekend down at Burrard Marina, and she always took the time to stop and talk with you. And then May 2020, had a chat with her, and that was the last chat I had with her. And I really want to thank CORA for supporting this initiative, because I really wanted to make sure that we did not forget her. And I really want to thank Kamini for reviewing her bio and highlighting that she was first and only Canadian V1 Open 500 meter gold, you know, first Western Canada Dragon Boat Paddle Sports Services Company, first warm weather dragon boat paddling camp on the continent, first Hawaiian Outrigger canoe camps. I'm just going to shut up now, and I'm going to hand this over to Kamini and Jackie's sister, and I'm going to just be quiet. So Kamini and Shelley, if you want to take this over, please.
Shelley, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first because I don't think I'll make it past what you have to say, Kamini. I want to thank CORA for this incredible honor, and thank you, Kamini, for helping put the bio together. It's an honor. It really is. I shared it with my mom and dad, and although we're not an athletic family, Jackie was the only athlete in the family. So their understanding of her impact on the sport and the coaching world is not quite, it just isn't the same as how you guys recognize it, but they are very proud of her nonetheless. And I just want you guys to know that I wrote down a quick story of the impact that Jackie's paddling experience has had on my life. She started coming home at the age of 13 or 14 with all kinds of colorful and funky clothing, weird colored shorts and long sleeve shirts with weird things written down the sleeve, and talking about all these people she was suddenly hanging out with, Kamini, Jain, Susan Bornamisa, Blair Gammon, and Susan Goodfellow. And I didn't know who these people were, but they meant a lot to her all of a sudden. And she was suddenly going away on these weird things called regattas. I had no idea even what that was, but we didn't have much money as a family. And so Jackie did it mostly herself. She worked part-time after school, and she made it all happen financially for herself at that very young age. Anyway, fast forward to hearing all about from my friends about this person they heard about, Jackie Weber. She's so cool. We went to the same high school, wondering if I was her sister, her younger sister. Yes, I was. And that was the beginning of the shadow of Jackie Weber that I lived in. I thought I might escape it. In, I think it was 1990, 1991, I went all the way to New Zealand to try and do my own thing, and started a 4-month biking trip, and ended up in this train station in the middle of nowhere in New Zealand. And this young lady walked up to me, and she looked at me and she said, "Are you from Vancouver?" And I was confused, and I was like, "No, why are you asking?" And she said, "Oh, you're wearing a False Creek Racing Canoe Club shirt." And I said, "Oh, it's my sister's." Like Jackie always gave me her toss-offs. And I was always so proud to wear them because I know she did a lot. And I said, "Oh, my sister, she paddles for FCRCC." And she said, "Oh, who's your sister?" And I said, "Oh, Jackie Weber." And she said, "I know Jackie, she used to coach me." And I thought, oh, yep, here we go. Halfway around the world, and I can't escape her even then. But I was incredibly proud of her and everything that she accomplished. She was so humble about all of it. And even when she won the World Championships, that was the year that I went away to university, and she called me up to tell me that she had won. And I was so excited for her. But the next thing she asked me was, "How's school going?" And that was her. She was just an incredibly humble person, and she accomplished so much. And even still, I'm just learning about it all. And I want to thank you guys for this incredible honor and all these names that have been on this list that you've been going through tonight. I've heard them throughout the years, and just understanding the impact that she made in being included in those lists of people that she really looked up to and that really shaped her and shaped her life. It means everything. So with that, Kamini, before I dissolve into a massive mush, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley, and I am so grateful for the Weber humor that came into your stories, and I think helped us all remember Jackie's way of being through the way you are and how you grew up. It's as I was saying to the people when we started the call earlier, it's a super humbling audience today. There's so many of you, the inductees, the speakers, and other people on the call who've just so greatly impacted my life as a paddler, as a coach, and because it's so all intertwined often as a person. So I really thank you. And if I look out at you, I get a little bit nervous and very, very heartfelt appreciation to you. I'm honored to be speaking about Jackie today because nobody has impacted my growth as a person more than Jackie. And along that, I could really resonate with what Shelley was saying. I met Jackie when I was 14, as she said. She was actually the first person who put me in a K1. She started the year before I had. So when I came down, she was like this wise old person who put me in the K1. And she clearly wasn't as good at coaching then as she became because I sat in the kayak and fell right out the other side. So I did have some work to do. But from that day, I was hooked on the sport. And from that day, I had this brilliant friend and teammate. And all of you who know Jackie will remember her to be bouncy. She started being called Tigger by the women's dragon boat team. She was bouncy, she was energetic, she was loving, she was generous beyond. And that was the person that she was. And we trained hard. We trained hard at the Calgary Canoe Club, but we had so much fun. And we had that kind of fun, that silly fun that kids have. So, one thing, if I paddled what she considered too hard in the warm-up, I would hear her yelling from behind, "Calm, there's no warm-up Olympics." And funny little antics she had like that. But we took the sport seriously. We snuck out in K2 sometimes to do secret practices because we weren't actually supposed to be K2 partners, but we really wanted to be. Don't tell the others that. But she got us all in love with Phil Collins and Platinum Blonde. And we all danced the same way, what we called stomping, which she originated, which being Calgarian was a fitting way to dance. And along the same lines, she started speaking in this Texan accent one summer, and it must have been the time of the Calgary Stampede. It just must have been. We used to wear cowboy hats because we thought we were cool. But before we knew it, we were all speaking in a Texan accent. We thought she was so ridiculous. And then before we knew it, we were all doing it because she had this osmosis about her. She had this magnetism. And, sometimes I agree with Shelley. It felt like a little bit of living in the shadow of Jackie. But for me, it was something that because of the grandeur of it, because of the excitement of it, I had tried to emulate as much as I could out of what I learned from her. So I could talk about stories about Jackie, and I think all of us could talk about stories about Jackie for forever. What I want to talk about is her V1 journey. So we were roommates when she was pursuing her goal of being world champion in V1. And I was training for sprint kayak and she'd now switched to V1. But because she had been raised in sprint kayak, she just took on the norm of, oh yeah, you train 10 times a week. That's what you do. So out she went. She got a perfect training partner in Heather Taylor. She got all sorts of help from people. The strongest help she got in my memory is from Drew Mitchell. She'd come back and say, "Drew didn't let me switch sides for 9 minutes." Like, yeah, any of us who paddles V1, imagine not changing sides for 9 minutes and actually getting anywhere. So she really dedicated herself to the process of preparation. She looked at the physical side. She looked at the technical side. Anybody who's coached by her knows how technical she was. And she looked at the mental side to be coached by Jackie or be, as I was the thankful recipient of, many pep talks, you will have ingrained her voice. Trust the process. Trust the process. When she prepared for that race with such dedication that she would say she lined up in Samoa and she said to herself, trust the process. You know, and for her, the process had been underpinned by such diligence that she paddled to that gold medal, an accomplishment that hasn't been equaled since. So she was a tagline person. Everybody will have a tagline from Jackie, that's for sure. And I see Shelley's nodding. So Jackie, as Shelley said, Jackie never wore her accomplishments on her sleeve, and I always wished she had. She was such a shining light and a wealth of knowledge to all of us who were lucky enough to be touched by her. So I do appreciate that CORA has chosen to recognize Jackie and all of her accomplishments and all that she's given to our community. And I'm really thankful to have the honor to talk about her. It always warms my heart to be able to share anything I can about my dear friend. And I would like to congratulate all of the inductees today and thank CORA for setting this all up.
Thanks, Kamini. Kamini, it was a nice sort of bridge to finish off with, and I'm going to pass the mic back over to Graham, and then Ron will say a few words, and then everyone can go eat dinner depending on what part of the country you're living in. Maybe you've already had it, but Graham, over to you. And Graham, let me just thank you for all the work that you put into this process. I think you can tell by the audience how appreciative people are and how important it is to our sport. So Graham, I want to thank you for that.
Very welcome, Eric. And I know we could go on all afternoon thanking and thanking and thanking, but I do appreciate that everybody's stuck on past our 5:30 cutoff. Like I said, everybody's waiting for dinner, and you know, Eric sent out that email, and everybody has everybody's email. So if you have not had an opportunity to connect with your friends for a long time, please do. It was great to see faces, and I encourage everybody to reach out and connect with everyone and keep in touch. And once again, thank you for the CORA board for putting this on. Thank you to our inductees for being here and listening to all the accolades. And thank you to all of our guest speakers for sharing some very emotional moments, and look forward to seeing all of you on the water. Take care.
Thanks, Graham. So don't go yet, everyone. We have just a few remarks left from Ron Chin, the Grand Poobah, the wizard behind the drapes. So Ron, over to you for some final remarks.
Thanks, Graham. Thanks, Eric.
I could talk for a minute.
Sure, go ahead.
So I just want to really be brief. I know we're almost at the finish line here, and everybody's in their final sprint. I do just want to thank Eric, Graham, and Ron for putting all of this on, CORA for putting it together. I haven't been really part of CORA for many years now, and thanks very much. Just a few things. One is Colin, Shaw, and I were probably, we think we're the first Canadians to ever paddle outrigger. We may not have been in an outrigger race. We got we were invited by, in a very controversial move, by a guy named Pete Caroline to come and paddle with his crew in Hawaii because he'd been kicked out of another crew that was called a MUA, and he had enough money. He was a underwater demolition team guy from the Vietnam era, and he was a bit crazy, but he put together this crew of all world champions from marathon whitewater and some flatwater guys, because I'd been training flatwater in Southern California, invited us all down, paid for us all to go to Hawaii just before the race, like 2 days before the Molokai race. I'd never paddled outrigger before. My whole background had been in flatwater. And the things that I was told was by a few world champions who were in that boat, whitewater world champions, is don't listen to anything that Pete says. Anyway, we went out and raced that race, and in a lot of ways that just completely changed my life. We talked about through this, a few people kind of touched on flat water background. Everybody seems to have a flat water background or something, with very few others involved in outrigger. But the outrigger was just amazing. We talked a little bit about Ohana, about how it's a big family. It's a very, very different way of looking at racing than what racing in lanes on flat water was. And I came out of that experience with Colin Shaw and Blazing Paddles, paddling into the beach in first place, thousands of people walking out to us in the water with lays to hang around our neck. The headline in the newspaper was Howley's Smoked the Mokes. That was the page 1 headline. The page 2 headline was the Pope just died. It was a big deal. It was huge. And it just completely changed my life. We went on then for the next 10 years or so racing. And then various clubs kind of set up, and we had different boats and all of that. And then CORA came along, and it came about like this. Like, I don't know why Andrea doesn't keep getting mentioned as part of the beginning of CORA, because I think I sat down on a bench down at False Creek Canoe Club, down at Granville Island with Andrea, and we talked about it. And we wanted to go race in the World Sprints, and you couldn't race in the World Sprints without having a national organization. The World Sprints were in Sacramento in that year, and so we put that together. And I think she piloted all of the like Dave Boulding and Gary Mancell putting together the statutes of being incorporated and so on. But Andrea was a huge part of how CORA really began. So I just wanted to set that little bit straight. The third thing is influences. So we'll talk a little bit about influences in outrigger, and outrigger got influenced a lot by flat water, and flat water to some extent has been influenced by outrigger. But the big thing that really influenced outrigger, when we went over there in 1978, we showed up, there's a bunch of marathon paddlers in our crew. We showed up with shorter paddles with T-grips, and we weren't allowed to paddle with them because that's not the traditional way of paddling. And so I got you, Melanie. So I'll be really fast here. So we just had these influences from other things, and now everybody paddles with T-grips. So we end up paddling that way. And that brought those influences. Flatwater brought all kinds of stuff in. Anyway, I want to thank everybody. Great thing tonight. Thanks for inducting me. That was a great honor. Thanks to Al and everybody else. Good night.
Thanks, Hugh. I think
Thanks very much.
Wendy was quoting Sheila when she said that the theme is finishing on empty. And I think we have all done the distance today. The one thing that I want to do before passing it over to Ron is that this is recorded. And so this is a living narrative that you guys can access and share with people, share with your clubs and so on. So we will send you the link probably tomorrow when it's uploaded and fixed on the CORA website. And I really do encourage you to share this with your paddlers who may not have as much access to the living history that you guys do. So Ron, over to you for your closing remarks.
Thanks everybody for joining. Thanks to the presenters, and congratulations to the inductees. I don't think that we can leave though without acknowledging that we also have several inductees present with us tonight whose accomplishments were celebrated in Comox in August. We've got Mel Whittall, we've got Annie Boulding, and I believe one of the Heathers is probably Heather Taylor as well. So thanks very much for joining us today as well to celebrate the accomplishments with your fellow inductees. Thanks everybody for joining the latest town hall video conference. Please note that we've got the CORA AGM on Sunday, November the 21st, and it's going to be by Zoom. The board of directors will be meeting in person in Vancouver, but the membership can join in by Zoom. And another administrative note is that we've posted the repair, maintenance, and equipment grant open call on the CORA website. So please, if you're involved with the equipment at your club, take a look at the requirements on that. And if you've got expenses that you can try and apply for a grant for, please do so. Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks.